you know, everyone knows that stigma, you know, leads to our death. But
Hi, it's Mark S. King, and welcome back to the HIV is Not a Crime conference. Before we begin our actual coverage, I want to tune you into something going on right now live. It is an action of sorts from those who are at the conference, who are living with disabilities, who are asking for more recognition and accommodation at the conference. Let's listen in.
The hat I wore was to be the person in charge of enforcing the Americans with Disabilities Act against all of you people. Right here in this auditorium. Okay. I constantly hear three words: diversity, inclusion, and intersectionality. If you look around your organization and you don't see ranking staff or members of your boards of directors that have a disability, don't be talking to me about that. Don't even say those words to me. Okay? My friend Pat Wright, who's the mother of the disability rights movement, stood in the Capitol Rotunda during the process to pass the Americans with Disabilities Act, and she said this: if you take people with HIV out of this bill, we're pulling it. It's all of us or none of us. And it should still be that way. So everybody go like this. And everybody go like this. I think we've identified the source of the problem. Ourselves. You got to do better. This university's got to do better. If you saw the process to get up on this stage, I wouldn't have to say anything more. So next time I want to see people with disabilities on these panels and in your planning process and in your organizations. You okay? You want something to add? That's okay. Go right ahead.
Okay, I'm just recently disabled, you know, within the last few years that slowly have back arthritis in my back and slip disc and sciatic nerve. And in December, I suffered a stroke, so I'm really new, you know, trying to get used to this disability and the image of disability. Along with the HIV, it's a double stigma. Because once you see, you know, if you disclose your HIV and you already feel out, you know, like you're being discriminated of or held back from some things because you got to take your meds. Your side effects of some of your meds cause, you know, upset stomach, loss of control. Now with me with my stroke, I lost a lot of my left side, and it's also have lost me some nerve and muscles, where I have to wear an adult diaper. So not only now do I have to just worry about this, I have to worry where is the nearest bathroom, and I can't walk as far. And everywhere I'm going, I'm looking to see where I could sit to eat or anything, where when in crowds where my walker is not going to be in nobody's way, where they're not going to trip over my cane and stuff. And sometimes this is where I really don't want to sit. I don't want to sit in a corner somewhere, but I'm stuck sometimes in a corner. So the stuff's I'm not in, and at the airport coming here, I almost missed the shuttle. I was with a whole group of people. They're able to walk fast and normal pace. They're all in their little group. I got left way behind. The shuttle was taking off without me. Two people say, hey, wait a minute, she's with us. And the shuttle guy goes, well, I got to move. They go, you going to leave somebody behind? And, it's already, it takes a lot for anybody to come here and travel. But just imagine you have to set up disability, make sure you're, and they make us wait at the airport a lot longer sometimes for that. You get scared, they're not going to come for that wheelchair, and how you're going to make it to your flight.
That's right.
And stuff. We're depending on other people to get us places on time.
Thank you. That's great advice for all of us. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. I'm sorry. We have to stop now because we have a timed speaker who's going to be calling in. But please, a round of applause for these folks. And I better say a lot more in 2 years. Okay, I want to have the announcement this morning about the phone. We're still looking for a lost phone that is being charged somewhere, and it has a blue case, and we need to locate the phone or the person's not going to be able to get on their plane. So with that, who am I turning this over to?
You're going to look right at me. I'm Mark S. King, and welcome back to our live stream, because it is live, of our HIV is Not a Crime Training Academy here in Indiana University. We are here at the last day and our last plenary before the closing session. And what a couple of days it has been. I am here with Arnita Rogers, who is with one of our sponsoring organizations, Positive Women's Network. And Arnita, well, we're wrapping this up. And we have an amazing panel coming up on how other segments of our society are criminalized, whether it's sex work or drug use or immigrants and that sort of thing. What are your impressions of the conference as you are seeing it come to a close after your hard work?
Yeah, definitely. I think there is a lot of exciting energy. We've done a lot of work in prepping people to do policy change, but there's also been a big shift in really centering those that are most impacted by criminalization. And I think this is such an excellent way to round out the conference, and also with this action for people that are living with disabilities to actually come to the forefront and say, hey, we can't be left behind in these efforts too. But overall, I think it's been an excellent conference, and we've grown a lot since Huntsville.
There's so much that has been improved since they did Huntsville. We're still living in dorms, and we are because we want to. Because this is not a. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting a message that the panelists are coming up. We've got some time. Okay. We've got some time. They're bringing somebody in on Skype, so I thought maybe that was a signal to us. Positive Women's Network has been doing this work for a long time, and you really came on board early, the organization did, supporting criminalization and being a part of this conference. I thank you for that. Why is it so important, do you think, for women to be in the forefront of this issue?
Absolutely. Well, we found, I was a part of the California campaign, and probably we had more data about other states that women were actually disproportionately impacted by these laws. And whether it's just on the statutes being on the books, we've also found that, cross genders, but women are disproportionately impacted by violence, the structural violence of having these laws on the books, and that they can be used as a tool of coercion to stay in relationships that are unhealthy. So I think that's definitely a reason why we bring a gender analysis to HIV criminalization. We also look at it as a reproductive justice issue. Who you can have sex with, if that's not reproductive justice, I don't know what is, right?
Thank you for that. And thank you for you were involved in the California, because that seems to be, everyone agrees, is the most sweeping change and a real model for how we might want to do this in the future.
So far we were able to pass a really comprehensive law. It's not perfect, policy change isn't, but we have an opportunity to keep working and, keep pushing the bounds of what we were able to pass in California. Even still, actually in our state strategy meeting, we talked about what work is next, which is great. And so that's what we're going to report on, about what we want to do now with the folks that we were organizing with.
We're going to thank you so much, Arnita, for your work and for Positive Women's Network's sponsorship of this. We're going to take you to the last plenary, which is where we're going to examine criminalization as it applies to other segments, such as sex work, drug use, immigration, and even just being trans, and how transgender people are criminalized. So let's take you to the final session in our live stream from HIV is Not a Crime Training Academy. Thank you.
Introduce this panel. These are some communities I very much care about, friends that are dear to my heart. Just like HIV is not a crime, sex work is not a crime, injecting drugs is not a crime, using drugs is not a crime. Immigrating, migrating to our country is not a crime. Having trans experiences is not a crime. So we don't really have a deadly epidemic of HIV anymore. We all know that. We have a deadly epidemic of stigma, but we also have another deadly epidemic of layers of criminalization that intersect and overlap with one another and bring incredible amounts of harm to the most vulnerable and marginalized and oppressed and discriminated against members of our communities. So I won't bore you with all the research and the statistics. I could share all these numbers as a social scientist, this percentage, that percentage. Here's some resources. We'll share these with you if you want the data on how these communities, our friends, our peers, are incredibly harmed by their criminalized status. So you can look at that. But what's more important, and I always share this, behind every single statistic is a person, a living human being that has an experience. And so what I want to share today is to remind all of us, one thing that I was taught as an advocate, our stories matter. Tell your story. Tell it, tell it, tell it again, tell it to everybody, because that is what is going to bring about change. So with that, I'm going to transition to our panelists, and I'm going to start with Tiffany, who's on the phone here, and she's going to share her story.
Hi, everyone.
Morning.
So my story is, pretty basic. I ended up raped
Unexplained.
at 19 and got infected with the virus. I was a prostitute and it ended up turning into over and over court prosecutions of aggravated prostitution. In the state of Tennessee, they're not friendly at all with HIV charges. So at the age of 20, I was put on the sex offender registration. I'm 37, so I've been sitting on the registration for 17 years. I have a 4-year-old daughter, and the reason I couldn't be there at the conference is the hotel I was going to be staying at. They had verified that there's going to be no child conventions, Girl Scouts, science fairs, that their children were going to be booked to stay at. Wow. So we're repeatedly living the discrimination of just simply having HIV and now labeled as a child predator. My 4-year-old daughter, I can't take her to the park, I can't take her to the zoo, and do any child activities with her that are not approved, that are private mission, like church. I'm allowed to take her to church functions, but other than that, it's pretty isolated. In 2015, I passed the Chapter 469 as part of that passing, and it now allows me to come off the registry, but I have to file a petition and fight again to come off to prove abuse and a reason why I should be taken off the registry. There's nothing into account that I've been undetectable for over a decade now. I use protection. I never, ever put anybody at risk in my work. It was like stream effects of being able to get to treatment centers, because treatment centers do not accept HIV. They look at that as a pending, high health crisis. They also look at the sex offender registry, and there's no treatment centers that can accept a sex offender because a lot of them deal with minors as well, and so you cannot be housed in-house. Just through the years, it's been a struggle. Criminalized under this statute and suffering under the registry. Now, being a single mother, it's extremely depressing. It's very hard. I miss an incredible conference, incredible life experience because of them having to verify that no children are going to be around. So this fight is definitely worth the fight. It's a lot of work to be done. And I'm here. And I'm trying to push with the team, and it's lonely at times. Tennessee is very slow moving. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you.
We love you, Tiffany. Is this thing on?
Thank you, Tiffany. We're going to leave you on. Can you stay with us? I know you have to go
I
back to
can.
work. You can?
Yes, I
Awesome,
can.
awesome. Because we're going to, at the end, we're going to have Q&A with the audience. But now we're just going to transition with our panelists. I guess we'll just go in order. Start with Cris.
Great. My name is Cris Sardina. I'm the National Director of Desiree Alliance. We are a sex worker rights organization. Sex worker we have rights. We're human. And yesterday, I do want to say about this time here at the conference. I just recently moved to Arkansas, and they got some fucked up HIV laws. Fucked up. And still, you know, the most I did in Arkansas is I bought a kayak and I bought a fishing pole. You know, laws are raining down on sex workers right now. I mean, raining down. Last time I checked, and that was a few months ago, we could have bumped it up, but there were over 300 bills or laws or some kind of crap in the states that hammered down on sex work. And so, you know, I'm at a point now, and I'm at a loss right now. I'm sad, I'm really confused. For the first time since I've had Desiree Alliance for 10 years, I don't know what to do. I do not know what to do. You know, so I have to restructure my whole life. I have to restructure my organization because we're known for our conferences. We have big conferences like this. And because of laws that are raining down on sex workers right now, we were going to have it. We're very political. We're a national organization. We have a 5-day conference. I cannot bring 400 plus people because if one person isn't visaed up correctly, if one person doesn't have citizenship at all, if one sex worker puts an ad online, I will go to prison. And I'm 58 next Sunday. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to go to prison for the rest of my damn life. And so yesterday, you know, so I'm really at a loss right now, and I'm wandering around kind of in the, you know, I don't know what to do. And, you know, next steps. How do you stop the bleeding? How do you stop the bleeding? Because it's passed, the laws are passed. So how do you stop the bleeding? So yesterday I went to my state meeting, and I thought, you know, I got a fishing pole and a kayak, and that's about as much as I want to do. I recently went from Arizona, where we hunt people, and y'all have a collective gasp on what's going on and ripping people away from children. That shit is the norm in Arizona, and it's been the normal in Arizona for years and years and years. So when you collective gasp at women and children and families being ripped apart, that shit is the norm. We went from a small room like this for our border patrol and immigration, probably just maybe smaller, to taking the whole side of an Air Force base. A whole side that is miles. Okay, that's not just a quarter mile. That's not just a bus ride, bing away. That is the whole side of the damn Air Force base. So, you know, so I recently moved to Arkansas, where we've got an Air Force base, and you can hear the boom, boom, boom. It's a training center. Elvis trained there. And, you know, that's a training center, and you can hear what's going on. Whenever you see it up in the air, you know what's going to be happening. So anyways, but I recently moved to Arkansas, and I went to the state meeting yesterday, and I thought, oh, I got my fishing pole, I got my kayak, I don't even want to be bothered with Arkansas, because oh my God, really? I'm one of 5 Democrats that voted. They looked at me, and there was a collective gasp when they go, how do you vote? And I said, Democrat. And boy, they just threw the shit at me in a way, pointed me to the booth. But in Arizona, I could not vote because I'm a multiple felon. That has nothing to do with sex work, but years ago. And so I could not vote. But in Arkansas, I can. Okay? Use the power of the vote. Use your power. So I looked at the girl yesterday, the only Arkansan, and she looked defeated before she even started. And then I found out there was a goddamn sex offender registry for people with HIV. It's like, is that right? Well, guess who's working in Arkansas now? That shit's not gonna happen. So, you know, repeal would be something you put on your body for mosquito repellent. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna modernize those laws. And I don't know where my Arkansas girl is, but we're gonna move that mountain, okay? We're gonna move it, and we're gonna modernize that language, because language is very important. When you know, with sex work, where you transmit the disease, sex workers spread the disease, okay? We're spreaders, we're not. Our numbers are very low. And at our conference, we gave away 16,000 condoms in 5 days. That tells me sex workers are working safe. You know, that tells me we're working safe. We had our first HIV testing day, and I thought it was so important, and 18 people out of 400 tested. But 18 were negative, and 18 did it. And so, you know, I thought, oh my God, that's just terrible. You know, I wanted at least 100 people to test. But then somebody goes, you know, you want us to test in the middle of the week to find out our HIV status at a whore conference, really? So I understood that. But if we have another conference, if we are able to have another conference, I will be doing it again. So, you know, I just want you to know, language matters. Where you're transmitting, we're vectors, you know, and we are not vectors. So remember your language, whether you believe in sex work or not. It's about the right to damn choose the choice of your body, of how you want to labor with your body. Where's Barb Cardell? Thanks a lot, Barb, for taking me out last night. I'm going to give you to Marco.
If you have the opportunity to go to the conference by the Desiree Alliance, in my experience, it has been the best conference that I've ever attended in my entire life. And I've gone to some conferences. And so I also would like to ask to all of you, if you can in any way to support the Desiree Alliance work, please do. Cris Sardina has been my angel and the light, the strength, and the person that has been there for me all the time. I'm saying this constantly because I think that as an immigrant living with HIV, struggling with mental health in a difficult way for the past couple of years, it has been my friends, the very few friends that that step up to the plate, the ones that have kept me going. And I honor the work of Cris Sardina, and I love her to death. And I would like for you to consider support the Desiree Alliance. It is my pleasure to be here, and I am talking about immigration in perhaps the ways that you are not expecting. That we're calling
Tiffany. She must be.
Tiffany again. Should I? So I'm going to talk to you about immigration. Yesterday, I had I participated in a panel around racial justice, and I mentioned mental health. And a lot of people came to me and to talk to me about how they felt because I have mentioned mental health in the conference. And so, since we know that the realities of a person living with HIV is almost always connected to mental health issues, if not always connected to mental health issues, I happen also to be a filmmaker. And I created a short film about my journey with mental health. And I thought that it would be very good for you to watch this film this morning. It is 7 minutes, and I am going to show the film to you and use that time for you to see that immigration has a different shapes and forms. And this film was done when I was really, really sick. I have lost my home, and I wasn't doing very well. But I worked for a couple of days with a friend of mine, and we put together this film that is called Not a Sad Day.
Oh, I want to be there. I want to be there.
I never thought that I would experience something like this. I never thought that this could happen to people. I lost my home and my car and the ability to pay my rent and all of that. My job. I have lost a few friends, unexplained. Feeling abandoned. My name is Marco. So since August of 2015, I have been dealing with depression. Yeah, I didn't know that I was depressed until I started losing my eyesight. Really, I spent the whole night, I remember so well, I spent the whole night in the office trying to finish this report. I went to see my eye doctor because I wanted a new pair of glasses. And that's when I learned that I have lost a considerable amount of eyesight. And then I went to see a psychiatrist and a psychologist and my doctor, and they diagnosed me with depression. A lot of things happened in my life previous of my crisis. Like my father passed away. My relationship of 10 years ended. My boss in a social justice organization who used to be my shield left. And my cat of 16 years passed away too.
Come on. Seriously?
Las cenizas del Kafka están siempre con este monito. Kafka lo adoptó siempre juntos a él.
Tiffany, we're going to call you back.
Okay.
In a little. Sorry. Cindy, please contact Tiffany and tell her we'll call her back.
I developed anxiety. A lot of things happened in my life previous of my crisis. Like my father passed away. My relationship of 10 years ended. My boss in a social justice organization who used to be my shield left. And my cat of 16 years passed away too. Las cenizas del Kafka están siempre con este monito. Kafka lo adoptó a él, siempre juntos a él. I developed anxiety. I would shower with fear. I would have panic attacks in the morning on my way to work. And so work started to become a source of anxiety for me because they didn't understand how to deal with me. Besides stigma, a lot of the things that people label as stigma is actually discrimination. And it's discrimination in our faces. There is a lot more people that face the police or the authorities than a doctor. Shouldn't be the opposite. Shouldn't be the other way around. So in my case, I'm somebody who is queer, who lives with HIV, who has issues with mental health. Do you understand all these forces that I have against me? So cute. My room right now is tiny. Mira, siéntate aquí. So from my house, I have a tiny room where, like, not only do I sleep and work, but my cat lives there too. Foto de mi mamá. I don't have a home. I'm staying with family because I'm Latino, and that is a saving grace sometimes here in the U.S. Vente. Vamos a caminar. They have embraced me here. Lola! Oh, hija mía. So I think that being here with my family and being here with Lolis, the dog, and with Snow White, the cat, and my cat Lola, who came with me, it really showed me how the importance of what it means to be part of a family. And in fact, they become the best therapy. Because right now I don't have insurance, so I don't have access to anything like that. Mira, porque así nada más dice, y entonces no. I've learned that my family is a stronger source of love, care, understanding. I appreciate them and I love them more than before, a lot more than before. Depression for me wasn't really like a wave that took me under, but it was sort of like a constant rain. I don't know if the word optimistic is correct, but I'm resilient. So that means that no matter what, I'm going to try. Depression can take all the money that I have, all the things that I have, and that's okay because all of that is replaceable. But I'm not replaceable. So the one thing that depression is not going to do is that depression is not going to touch my soul. It has not touched my soul. It has not touched my essence and the deep-rooted values that I have about life and about people. Depression cannot do that. So that's the film. It's an important film, and I watch it every single day, so I remember what it is when you are in the midst of struggling, and when everything comes to you and you don't really understand what is happening. So there is a ton of immigrants that struggle with mental health because of immigration. There is a lot of immigrant people right now that are struggling, are staying afloat because of the many attacks that the immigrant community is being the target of by the administration. And so powerful solidarity in the shape of engagement is what we really need. What we need. I'm just going to take a quick second to also acknowledge the work that the folks from Puerto Rico on criminalization is taking place. We haven't heard so much from them, but I hope that before the end of this session, we can hear some folks from Puerto Rico. And I also want to say that the other immigrant issue that is important is AIDS 2020. The conference that is taking place, or that is planned to be taking place in San Francisco on 2020, and I am completely opposed for the conference to take place for many, many reasons, and the very reason that I feel that I cannot that I cannot concede that is taking place in San Francisco until the very last minute is that there is not a plan for that will guarantee the safety of any immigrants that will come to this country. And so if you want to be involved with us, you can talk to Nina, you can talk to me, but you can also, just talk to us. We don't have a website yet, but I think that we're going to continue doing that. And so I hope that in the Q&A we can talk about more details, but I'm just going to finish my presentation by honoring today is a day of action for Roxana Hernandez, the transgender woman who died in the hands of ICE, or while I was in ICE. She was part of the caravan who came to this country, and she was 18 days on the detention center, and she passed away. And we honor.
Pass away. They killed her.
We honor her memory. And Carrie, this is all what I got. If you all folks have any questions after the presentation about the film, and if you want to use it for educational purposes, you let me know.
Hi. Hi, can you hear me?
Tiffany's back with us, just so everybody knows.
Hi, Tiffany.
Hi.
Okay. All right, so we're going to move on down the panel.
My name is Cris Abert, and I'm with the Indiana Recovery Alliance and the Indiana Harm Reduction Coalition. And I just want to say it's been a real honor to be here, and thank you for inviting us and sharing space. It's been very powerful, impactful, and moving. And we're going to leave here much more woke and ready to join in with the fight. So I'm here because my friends are dying, and they're being told that they're subversive and that they're criminals and that they deserve what they get, and they're villainized, and they are pushed to the side, and they're pathologized, and they're told that they're diseased. And I think that our fights have a lot in common with each other just in that, right? So I'm here to make sure that the voices of the people who are like me and who are like everybody else in this room are heard. Our major goal at the Indiana Recovery Alliance is to make sure that the people who policies are being made about have a seat at the table, right? So that is, we go around in the guise of a public health outfit, but really we're a human rights outfit. And even more so, we're saying you actually don't have the right to tell us what our rights are. These are not something the government can bestow upon us. These are something we have in and of ourselves. So I want to talk a little bit about criminalization, and I don't think it's fair to talk about criminalization unless we talk about why they criminalize us. And they criminalize us to control our bodies and disempower our communities. That is the major goal of criminalization. And I don't care what criminalization it is. Control my body and disempower my community. I go and I have literally, I want to talk about this everywhere I go. And everywhere I go, usually when I go to talk about racism and classism and transphobia, they tell me, Cris, tone it down. Cris, that's not what you're here for. Cris, you're here to share your story or to talk about harm reduction or to talk about syringe exchange. And so I change my slides and I talk about it anyway. So I'm glad to have a receptive audience for once. Because I got the lily white audiences all the time. And someone earlier called me the white person whisperer, and that is the best compliment I've ever gotten. So I want to talk really quickly about the history of drug criminalization and show you why I care and why you should care and why we should all care. The very first drug law was a racist-ass law against Chinese immigrants, okay? It's in the late 1800s. They did not want Chinese people coming in this country, and so they made up a thing where white women were under attack by Chinese people, luring them into opium dens, right? So white women are property that need to be protected by white males, and we need to legislate against immigrant populations. Bam, that's our very first drug law.
Is that the Harrison Act?
No, it's it's part of the Cooley laws. It was also our first immigration law. So immigration and drug policy and racism are all intertwined. We're not gonna be able to disentangle them, okay? The next thing we got, why do we call marijuana marijuana? Because racist laws against Mexican immigrants coming across the border. That's why we don't call it cannabis, right? It was meant to scare white Anglo-Saxon folk, right, in the controlling class, that this menace of Mexicans were coming across the border, and they were so high, guess what they were going to do? They're going to have sex with white women. right? We cannot allow that. They were going to take our jobs and they were going to affect white posterity. And I want to throw this in. The whole opioid crisis right now is framed around white posterity, and that is sinful, literally, right?
Yeah.
So for myself, people sometimes, well, Cris, where were you in the 80s and 90s when the crack happened? Well, I was smoking crack and in jail, so I believe that I am excluded from that. However, other people have a lot to answer for themselves. I was actually right up the street here. I turned 18 from a juvenile facility and was transferred into an adult facility. I've been in and out of group homes. I've been molested by neighbors and teachers. I've been beaten down throughout my whole childhood. And the most dehumanizing experience that ever happened to me was getting involved in that prison industrial complex. Out of all of those experiences, that was the thing that really took something away from me of being a human being, and I will never get that back. So I don't like prisons. Moving on in our chronology of why we should all fight together, we have the black menace, right? So black people, did you know when they do cocaine, they become impervious to bullets? That's right. You can fill them full. I am not even lying. Police officers in the early 1900s went from 32 caliber guns to 38 caliber guns to put down this black menace that was the cocaine menace, right? They're coming up from the South. So again, this idea of like super predator is not a 1980s and 90s word. This has been going on since the early 1900s. This has been going on since the first slave laws in Barbados were passed. So don't let anyone tell you differently that this is somehow about drug use. Then we move on to Irish and Italian immigrants trying to organize, right? And they organized in taverns. And a big part of Prohibition was to disempower those communities. Again, labor, immigration, race, it's all intertangled. And finally, and not least detrimental, and which we are still experiencing horrible consequences, is the Nixon administration, right? The emperor and Darth Vader stepping in to completely destroy the Black Power movement and disempower the anti-war left, right? And so if we look at these drug policies, they have not done anything to decrease drug use because they were never intended to decrease drug use or keep us safe.
Right.
If we look at them as meant to disempower and destroy community, then all we have to do is look to African American communities, indigenous communities, Latino communities, and Asian communities, and we will see that they are 100% successful. And we need to tear down this system, right? We need to tear this system down. So we can talk about reform and repeal, but the IRA, and it's in our name, kinda, is about tearing it up. The last thing I want to talk about, I mean, there's so much to talk about, but I only had 8 minutes, so it's really, really important, again, for the Indiana Recovery Alliance to make sure that this story is understood, okay? So let's talk about reproductive rights as well in the history. So in Scott County, the worst HIV outbreak in the history of the country, right? Everybody know about Scott County? 231 new HIV cases in a town of 4,400. That's 5% of the town IV drug-using people who now have HIV, right? That's pretty massive. That's higher than sub-Saharan African levels. Right? Why? Because of criminalization. In 2014, the Indiana Code was revised. Syringes were moved to a felony. And at the same time, Governor Pence shut down that Planned Parenthood. So reproductive rights, right? And women's rights are also involved in this, right? I'm fighting right now against my supposedly progressive city of Bloomington, Indiana, which, so you know, is faux-gressive, not progressive. They're trying to block buprenorphine clinics from coming in. Buprenorphine cuts mortality by half. I'll be done in 2 seconds. Cuts mortality by half. The only way I can defend this law is through the American with Disabilities Act, right? So this is all of it. We need all of it. And I will end with this. If I am liberated, if drug users are liberated, we will never actually be liberated until trans people are liberated, until African American communities are liberated, until Latino communities are liberated, until reproductive rights are respected, until we have access to universal health care, and until the system that is meant to fail us is dismantled completely.
Well, I'm Zaniya James. I'm the co-founder of the L.A.T.E Project, and I also volunteer with Brothers United. The criminalization for me is not going to be about the HIV process, the HIV aspect. It's going to be about the transgender aspect, because the reason why the transgender aspect is the main focus is because if we can take care of ourselves, if we could have took care of ourselves as the transgender community, or if we would have the access and the ability to go and to have an outreach and a network to go and get the things that we needed, have us when they contracted HIV in the first place. If we would have had resources to food, if we would have had resources to housing, we would have had resources to jobs and all these things, have us when it went to do the sex work that we did in the first place to go and catch HIV, we wouldn't have went to go do drugs, we wouldn't have went to go put syringes in our arms, we wouldn't have did none of that stuff. If we would have had proper medical staff that would give us our proper hormone regimen, we wouldn't have been sharing needles, sharing estrogen, doing it illegally. We would have had all that stuff properly, which is what I want to do with my L.A.T.E project. I want to end that gap, because I've been shot, I've been stabbed, I've been jumped, I've been homeless, I'm 30, I just now got on hormones October 25th of last year, and I've been trying since I was 21 years old. And I just finally have been able to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like you, I have mental issues as well. I'm not as vocal about them. Yes, I have depression. I also have insecurities in myself. But at the same time, I don't let anybody that knows me, Dr. Carrie, Mark Hughes, they would tell you they have came and literally woken me up off the concrete sidewalk because I was homeless, sleep, passed out off Katie, drugs, because that was my life. I didn't have nowhere to turn to. I didn't have nowhere to go to. I didn't have nowhere to. If I go in there and say, "Can you help me?" They be like, well, let me think, let me go talk to these people. Why you always gotta go talk to some people? Why can't you just talk to me? I'm the one with the issue, not them. And so that's where it comes to the point where it's like, there has to be a way to end this whole, I don't even know how to get the words out of my mouth. There's no way in hell that you can sit up here and tell me that I don't deserve to go to a mission because I decided to put on a skirt instead of pants today. There's no way that you can tell me that I don't deserve the same medical treatment because I might have fucked your husband last night. That's not right. You see what I'm saying? The same way that person lives, you live, my doctor lives, my endocrinologist lives, my care coordination lives. I have to live the same life. Because actually, if it wasn't for us, half of them wouldn't have a damn job. So therefore, why don't y'all keep talking about all this money? Why don't y'all protect y'all money and make something for the transgender community? So that's where all the money is.
I want money.
Ain't that it? But at the same time, there has to be a way, because I am tired of sitting in Indiana and losing my sisters. Started with my sister tomorrow when we started this L.A.T.E project. Now it done went from 2 years from losing tomorrow, and now I done lost my fiance sister for the same goddamn reason. Another black transgender woman is gone. Why? Because she had no one to reach out to. There was no network for her. There was no psychiatrist. There was no doctors. There was no advocate. There was an advocate, but she was so pushed back into a box that, well, let me take that back. There is an advocate, but I'm so into my own box that I couldn't even get out of my box to help her out of her box. Why? Because there's not even nothing for me. As strong as I am, there's not even no resources for me. I am my own resource. I'm my own network. I'm my own help. I'm my own shelter. I'm my own food pantry. I'm my own. Yes, I'm strong enough to do it. Everybody else is not. That's why I'm losing so many of my damn sisters. I'm tired of losing them. The reason why I was crying the day before yesterday wasn't because she died, because I feel like I'm tired of failing my sisters, because there's nothing up here in Indiana for us. And yet here I am trying to do it, but yet every time I hit brick walls. And then wonder why does every year we gotta have a TDR? Because every year we keep losing more and more and more. I don't hear a TBOR, what is it? BDR, a Black Day of Remembrance. I don't hear a WDR, White Day of Remembrance, Mexican Day of Remembrance, Hawaiian. I don't hear nothing but a Transgender Day of Remembrance. So why is it only a Transgender Day of Remembrance, but we got every other race, nationality, creed, and everything else? Nobody can ever, as many times I ask questions, nobody can ever give me an answer to it. So instead of asking for answers, I'm just going to make my own answer, which is why I'm coming out with the L.A.T.E project. Because because I'm a lead advocacy for transgender empowerment, which is what the acronym stands for. And I don't really know what else to say because I feel like I'm about to get in my emotions, so I'm gonna leave it at that. But anybody, y'all, if y'all want to pick my brain, ask questions, y'all know where to find me.
So we thank you to our amazing panel and your stories for sharing that with us. We're going to open this up to Q&A. We lost Tiffany again, so we're trying to call her back in case you have questions for Tiffany. Who's helping me with Q&A with the mics? Who are my helpers on each side? Okay. So we'll just, let's wait till see if Tiffany comes back. Questions for Tiffany?
So I do want to say, I'm not going to talk a lot about sex work. I want to say about community building and how we move across the lines to when I first walked into HINAC1, I was so tired. I was ready to quit Desiree Alliance. I was ready to just go flip burgers. I was done. I was tired. And because of this conference, I came out 3 days later walking on air from the beautiful people I met. I mean, Marco's one of them, and one of the things we decided to do as sex worker rights was move across the movements because we all have that commonality. I'm being criminalized. Oh, you're being criminalized. Oh, you're being criminalized. We're all being criminalized. We can all find common ground with one another. Because when I first came in, it's just, hey, Tiffany, go ahead. Go. Hey, Tiffany.
Tiffany, you're there, right? Say hello.
I am here.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to open up to Q&A. If anybody has questions, and if it's for a specific person or the panel, let's Q&A.
Hi, everyone. I have it's a question for everyone on the panel. Given that you're not minority, you're minoritized. Each one of your voices. How do you deal with? What are the tactics that you use to overcome that token spot that you are often put into?
I spoke the other day about putting the foot in the door theory. Once you jam your foot in that door and you scoot your fat ass through that door, get me out. Get me out. I'm here, I'm loud, I'm not leaving until you hear my voice. I'm being tired of stigmatized, criminalized, jailed, prison, what have you, killed. Sex workers are the marginalized within the marginalized. Even when I came in here, the first time I came into this space, and even in this conference, people, when I go, Cris Sardina, sex worker rights, and they go, oh. So, I call it, I'm not going away, and I refuse to go away. Until things change, I will not go away. I will not.
I mean, me personally, anybody here in Indiana would tell you my philosophy is my mouth is like Flint, Michigan. I have no filter. So therefore, that's how I do it. Like I can, any type of level you need me to get on, I'm gonna get on it. But no, I'm gonna have no filter. If I need to be on a political, professional, intellectual level, I can do that. If I need to get to the ratchet, gutter, all that, cussing, profanity, I can do all that too. But trust and believe, my point's gonna get across at the end of that time. And until my points get across, you're gonna keep seeing my face, you're gonna keep hearing my voice, you'll keep seeing this ass walk through that door.
And for me, and for most people of color, women, and I never use the word minority to refer to immigrants. In fact, we are Latinx people in this country are the majority in numbers. But one of the things that is really important in my work is culture. Our culture, or our cultures, our ancestors are used sometimes to oppress us. And so it's important for all of us to like really ground ourselves in our culture, with our ancestors, our colors, our flavors, our taste, and utilize all of that to celebrate who you are. When you celebrate who you are in a way that is absolute, which is cultural, then that is a weapon that you can use if there is a fight.
Tiffany, did you want to?
Yeah, can you repeat? We kind of got cut short on the question.
How do you avoid becoming a token minority when you're asked to participate? I hope I phrased that correct.
Yeah, can you rephrase that a little bit?
How do you fight How do you fight when people put you in a box? They tokenize you and they stereotype you. How do you fight against that?
Oh, Lord, I've been fighting against that since I was 19, 20. I have a voice, and sex work, it's not to be criminalized. It's a right. It's not. You put more in danger when you more criminalize it. You put people more in the back to be under control of more dangerous back trade than giving the right to sell. And it's just using my voice. My story may be a little different because I didn't go in it so willingly, but my voice now is that I'm not disgusting. I'm not this HIV infected person going around trying to spread it to everybody. I'm a woman. And you know, because now that I'm undetectable, it's not even, it's just using my voice with legislators. It's getting education out there. I remember when I was in passing this big one legislation wouldn't even shake my hand. So it's just using that voice, using education through what I've been taught and what I'm living with myself.
So obviously I'm not a minority. I'm cisgender, white male. I pass as not queer. So if I put on a suit and head into the halls, I can use my privilege and they don't know anything about my history. Probably the most powerful thing I can do is just, so last year we were outside of the governor's office with 100 people screaming nothing about us without us and trying to explain how they needed to, we didn't need to make our voice heard, they needed to lower the barrier, right? So we could have our voices heard. So the most powerful thing I think I'm doing right now is when I'm invited to speak on a panel, and again, it's like lily white, pale male, stale pale male kind of, right? I'll refuse to be on it, right? So if you're going to have me, I'm not the voice of all drug users. I'm not the voice of people with, high ACE scores. I'm not that at all. And if you don't have more people on your panel, if you're going to put me up there with a bunch of cops and judges and like psychiatrists, forget it. I don't even want. I just will refuse to participate, and then I'll make a big stink of it on social media. And calling people out on social media is a powerful tool.
It's awesome.
I also refuse to be in a panel if there is not if we are going to talk about HIV or about any queer issues in a panel and I'm invited, if there is not a transgender panelist in the panel, I will not participate. But how I go about it is actually I very nicely suggest that they have a panelist and I have a name. I have a PDF with the names and contact information of the transgender folks that I work with, so they can be so they can have a voice as well in the panel.
Okay, go ahead. Hi, I'm Wanda. Hey, Tiffany. It's good to see you.
Yes, thank you.
One of my friends here yesterday used the phrase Caucasian persuasion, and I think that is a most excellent phrase, because a lot of people will come to a person of Caucasian persuasion and think that they're going to get a conversation in one way or the other. What they don't know is that I'm going to bring other people into the conversation, because in my mind, we're like a chain link fence. We are connected. And I hope no one takes offense at what I'm saying, because y'all are my family. Pure and simple. I don't care what you do. I don't care what any of us do, what I've done or whatever. And I have been very dark over the last year, Marco, like you, because I went into a deep, dark depression. And you highlighting it, and Cris, and I'm sorry,
Zaniya.
let's just go with let your light shine. I have a thing with memory. And Cris, I love you. And Tiffany, we're going to, by God, get you up out of the state, okay?
Yeah, right.
So, is it going? Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
So my name is Teresa. So I just want to first say thank you to all the panelists. When I was watching your video, Marco, I was back here crying, right? Because that was my story, right? It went hand in hand when I was diagnosed. I was a former drug user. I lost everything, but family was there for me. And I'm tearing up now, you know, because it wasn't for my family understanding, I wouldn't be here, right? So thank you for making that video. I think it should be shown more often because that's a lot of our stories, right? And sometimes that's not our stories because some of our families abandoned us when they found out we were positive or we had a drug history and didn't want anything to do with us and stigmatized against us worse than our own community. But thank you for that video. In the black hat, I forgot your name, I'm so sorry.
Cris.
Cris, thank you for making sure that when you go do presentations to lily white audiences, and they said that you can't say this, you're really aggressive and go ahead and do it anyway, right? Because we're living in an aggressive moment, right? And we have to be aggressive when we're talking and making sure our point of views and our perspectives are being heard, and we just go ahead and do it anyway. Because when you were talking about that, it reminded me when I was in high school and I was in a pageant and I wrote this poem and it was talking about white supremacy and the principal said that you can't say that and called my aunt who I was living with to have a conversation with me. At the moment I said, okay. So when my time came when I was up there to get the mic, I said it anyway. Of course, I didn't win, but I came in third place.
Okay.
Right? So, you know, this is a time where we have to just say what we mean and mean what we say, right? Regardless when we are talking to audiences, especially like white lily audiences and professional people who got all the degrees behind, and I call it soup, behind your name, right? Doesn't give you a lived experience. My lived experience would tell you what needs to happen and the right pathways to go through, and you need to hear me because I lived it. So thank you again.
Thank you, Teresa.
Other questions?
Hello. Hello, how you doing? I want to say thank you so much for the panelists. And also, when you touch immigration, is something missing on the table? What is a transgender immigrants? Even if you have a transgender of color, trans-Latinas, immigrant, we have a different view and different life of the other immigrants. Right now, from the beginning of this conference, we, the transgender community, we raised the voice up about Roxana, who is a transgender woman, used to be living with HIV and was murdered by the ICE detention center. And now, I want to request to this conference, and I want to request to each of one, help to the transgender community, and hashtag justice for Roxana. And if you can have, like the conference, a statement for these kind of issues, you can help a lot to the transgender, trans-Latinas living with HIV. Because look at my case. I am indetectable. I am advocate for the entire United States. But I'm still immigrant. What happens if I be in ICE? My life don't care? And everything what I did for the community don't care? So please, make sure when you put something, remember trans-Latinas, when they have immigration and they face an ICE detention center, is totally different nightmare for us. And also is the death. So hashtag justice for Roxana, Please, thank you so much.
Thank you, Diana.
Hello, my name is Michael Lamb, and I have a question for you, Cris, because, clearly we're both white. And I know in my agency, I've always been the one to kind of push, black presence, black representation, instead of always talking to a room full of white folks. And I've actually got reprimanded for that. I actually wore this sweatshirt to work one day. If everybody can't see, it says I'm rooting for everybody black. So everybody black in the building, shout outs to you. So I want to know, how do you go about that without getting reprimanded? I know you said you slide it on in there every now and again, and you still are authentic in your truth for, getting a black presence there and letting people know about racism and the need in marginalized communities. So how do you do that without getting in trouble? Well, at least not too much trouble, because I don't give a fuck, but I just can't lose my job because they shut Backpage down.
Yeah. So I heard someone say, a wise person, that if you didn't risk your job this week and you're a social service provider and social justice, you suck at your job. I don't get invited back a lot, so, right? I'm surprised, actually. Every time I get a return invite, I'm like, well, it looks like I'm gonna amp it up a little bit this time, because they keep inviting me back. But the most important thing is to make sure I've got those people with me, and to make sure I keep bringing different people, right? So we don't have the same people giving voice. I also refuse certain questions. But yeah, I've mentioned it before, we every time we put something on our site about Black Lives Matter or anything, we get, you can see our subscriptions deplete. Yes. And I don't care. I don't want those people involved anyway. The Harm Reduction Coalition just issued a North Star statement saying that harm reduction is not about reducing the causes, the harm of drugs. It's about reducing the harm of racialized drug policy, right? So we need to stand strong behind people in this movement and make sure that racialized criminalization is at the forefront, because none of us are going to be free without it. So yeah, the short answer is I just don't stop, and I keep talking about it. I also we started our own organization, so you can't fire us.
Oh, sorry.
Other questions?
One right here. Thank you so much, everyone, for telling your story. I know that recent studies have shown that there's been a serious lack of education with health professionals, nurses, doctors, policemen, as far as HIV, people of the trans experience, sex workers. Zaniya, I know you shared a little bit about what happened to you. I'm curious to see if any of the other panel has dealt with that sort of stigma as far with their doctors and police officers and other people who seek to that.
Yes, that is a common occurrence with everybody that is a person of color or that is not a cisgender person. In my case, I actually was homeless for a year. I lost my home and my car, and for some reason, there were things that I would just not do. I couldn't really make myself to go to the DMV office without getting in a panic attack. And it took about a year for me to actually do that. But I also went to see a few free clinics where I refused to give them my information. I just wanted them to do testing on STIs. And in San Francisco, in Oakland, and in Los Angeles, they will not do it for me. So the reason because I stopped going to the doctor is because my own doctor started to treat me very differently after I talked to them about the use of drugs as a coping mechanism. And everything changed in my relationship with my doctor of 6 years, which is the time that I was living in L.A. So I consider that there is a bunch of bullshit among all of us and service providers about the acceptance. It is not true that people will see you the same way after you reveal certain things about your life and how you're managing whatever you're dealing with. The reality is that I don't know now what to tell my service provider because I'm afraid of repercussions because of my experience. So I think that there is not only education, people need to make a decision to actually change how they do work in the service providers because I think that a lot of us The other aspect of it is that I needed a penicillin shot. That if I was a couple months ago when I had to like talk to these people in the free clinic like 8 or 9 times before I actually got the shot. If I was not good enough, if I was dealing with the depression as I was at the beginning of my struggle, I will not call but 2, maybe 3 times, and then I will just go away. And so I think that there is a missed opportunity with service providers because of their unexplored prejudice against all of us that are different.
Do you think sex workers get good health care? We're not, it's very real fear that we cannot expose our histories to the health providers because we could get our children taken away. If we have children, it's duty to warn or the mandatory reporting. Very rarely do we get good health care because if you tell them you're a sex worker, well then, you're either rightly, deservedly so, of what you get, or we could get our children taken away, or we get infantilized, all of a sudden I'm a baby and I don't know my own damn good because I just don't know. If only I knew, I would be, a professor, I would be, well, I do have my master's, okay? And old whores never die, we become activists, all right? And because I'm criminalized, I can't be a professor. Or because I'm criminalized, I can't tell my health provider that, you're an old whore. So what I do is I adapt and I go to the senior community, okay, where I'm the young one. And so we work on it that way. But so health care is very important, and because we're stigmatized and criminalized, we don't tell our providers what we need, or we're not able to tell our providers what we need. So without the stigma and shame, so there really needs to be some education in the health field as well. So there's so much. I mean, my God, what isn't wrong? It's easier to say what's not wrong with this fucking country than it is to say, raise fist bump your, well, what the fuck is right about this country? Get out and vote.
Hi. An intersection that kind of keeps bubbling up is the intersection between HIV criminalization and mental health. Marco, I really appreciate you bringing that to the forefront. Zaniya, you're sharing your story. I myself have overlapping mental illness diagnoses. I'm on a lot of medication, guys. And to tackle HIV criminal laws without marrying the idea to mental illness is irresponsible, I think. So many of the arrests and charges that we track come from people who are in mental distress and spit at a police officer or bite a police officer. And I mean, everyone in the room knows spitting and biting pose no risk. And I'm wondering how we as a movement can be more deliberate about exploring this intersection, because I think mental illness is really pervasive. Antipsychotic, psychiatric drugs, the use of that or getting access to that is really difficult. So what we're seeing is a lot of people who don't have access to the care they need are then arrested under these laws that are completely divorced from science, that have nothing to do with modern science, have nothing to do with the modern epidemic. And I'm wondering if there's a way that we can strategize together about how to make sure that our advocacy is reaching people who have mental illness or reaching people who, in moments of mental distress, are criminalized. So I guess that's a question for everyone, and maybe something that I'd like us to think about more as a movement?
I'll tell you a little story about Marsha Powell. Marsha Powell was an Arizona inmate, severely mentally ill, drug addicted. She was her second charge of prostitution. She went to jail. The average term, if you go to jail or prison for prostitution, is 3 to 6 years. Arizona has outdoor holding cages. Everybody know where Arizona is? It's in the damn desert. Marsha Powell was waiting to go to a mental health appointment, and it's normalized that you wait in the outdoor holding cages until your appointment, and then the van picks you up, what have you. Marsha Powell, 107-degree heat, screaming, begging as the guards kept walking by, help me, help me, help me. When she got sentenced, I'll go back a minute, but when she got sentenced, she told the judge, thank you. I mean, it was just, and she liked coffee, she liked to smoke her cigarettes, and she was funny. Marsha Powell boiled to death in an outdoor holding cage on a 3 to 6 year term as they kept walking by her. She defecated on herself, she fell down, she begged for water. She didn't get the water. She died. 7 days later, Chuck Ryan, instead of looking at her file to see if she had children or next of kin, Chuck Ryan, the director of Arizona Department of Corrections, decided we're going to pull the plug. He was the one. So when you say mental illness and prison, they kind of go hand in hand. This was a woman who liked coffee and cigarettes, and she was funny. And she boiled to death as they watched. Think about that.
And me personally, I feel like, yes, the two do go hand in hand, but they're not gonna go hand in hand unless people feel confident enough in their healthcare providers to talk about it. They're never gonna do it. Like, honestly, I'll tell you, me personally, I've been diagnosed with HIV since 2010. This is the first conference that I've ever been in, and I've publicly said that I have HIV ever in my life. And it's taken years for me to do it. Like, and it's crazy because I daily I am in a HIV support prevention at Brothers United every day, and still it takes years for me. And even after this, outside of this, y'all probably still won't hear Zaniya say she got HIV outside of this conference. Still won't. But at the same time, until people are confident enough in their health care providers, they're never going to be able to marry the two back together. They're going to be divorced for the rest of their life. So until we, like you said, how can we get it? Until we can get our health care providers accurate enough and knowledgeable enough to sit up here and listen to us and be able to have the knowledge to actually help what we do, instead of just be like, well, okay, well, I'll get back to you in your next appointment. Then that's how we'll be able to fix the two. Until then, it's never going to happen.
So I think we're almost out of time. I have no idea what our time is. Oh, we do? Okay. All right. 10 minutes.
I just want to say very quickly, like, being diagnosed with mental health has been a lot more difficult than the HIV diagnosis. So this conference and the movement could start talking about it, because every time that I post something about mental health in my Facebook, I get 3 or 4 likes. If I post a photo of my cat, I get 100. And so I think that the reason because I made the film is because I am going to be working on a feature-length film, so I can ask and have other people to tell their stories, so we can actually like dismantle this myth, because there is a lot of people in the audience right now that are struggling with mental health and they will not have talked to anybody. Or if they talk to somebody, nobody believes them. In my case, when I talked to my friends and I told them, please go with me to the DMV because my car is going to be auctioned out, nobody believed me. And when I told them that I wasn't able to do my work, people instead of giving me flexibility, they gave me more rigid. So I think that there is also a transformation that needs to happen in our places of work, because as I said yesterday, we don't have to be healthy to be able to be part of the workforce of this country. We don't have to be perfect, because otherwise, as I said yesterday, I will never work then, you know? And so the reason because I mentioned mental health in this plenary is because I feel that is one of the intersections that is the closest, one of the intersections that has been ignored in general by the HIV movement.
Ask Tiffany if she wants to say something. Tiffany, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, mental health is definitely tied into that. I've had mental health since I was 8 years old, and of course, over the years, it got worse. And just recently, I was able to reconnect with a new agency because Cherokee Health Systems here in Knox County, because I'm a sex offender, requires a security officer to escort me through the hospital to my appointment and out the door. So it's been hard to access that health treatment since I've been here for 2 years. So hopefully within the next 2 weeks, I'll be receiving that treatment. But it's definitely connected. Depression. I've had suicidal thoughts. I've battled some pretty dark moments in the past year and a half. And if it hasn't been for my support that I reached out to, I probably wouldn't be at this conference right now. So aside from just my little girl and just knowing every day I need to wake up and fight for her, that's been my only feeling in mental health, is just knowing that I am responsible for another life. Had I not been responsible for her, you know, it's really dark. It's all tied together, and it's definitely needs the attention.
So most chaotic drug use is tied directly to traumatic events in someone's life. And what happens is someone is traumatized, and they try to deal with that trauma through self-medication, through illicit drugs, and then the state steps in and recreates those conditions of trauma, right, on steroids, right, and further traumatizes the person. So not only do we have not dealing with trauma, we have the state actually coming in and recreating those conditions, right, and exacerbating the problem. Oftentimes we can't be honest, as was said before, we can't be honest about what's going on with us in our mental health because we'll be prosecuted and or stigmatized and or caged. But I think this mental health, again, with the honesty thing, it's not that people who use drugs are somehow more dishonest, it's that they're put in a position where they have to lie all the time because of these conditions. And the last thing is, I can't think of another disorder even the stigmatizing language, but I can't think of another condition that you would be in. They will not treat you as a drug user until you address your drug problem first, right? So if suddenly Maslow's hierarchy of needs doesn't apply to drug users, we don't need housing, we don't need food, we don't need mental health access until we can get everything together, when in fact the drug use is a coping mechanism for the very thing they won't treat us for.
And drug use is mental health. It is mental health. So that the difficulty is that at the moment that I was dealing with depression and anxiety in a very horrible way, but at the moment that I said that I was using drugs, the depression and the anxiety went off my chart, and it was only addressed the fact that I was using drugs. And that is not what I needed. The last thing that I'm going to say about mental health is that we also need service providers that can actually treat us, people that we have another native language in our own language. Because it is very difficult to talk about issues so important to your heart and to your soul in another language. You have to be processing the information. So if my native language is Spanish, I should be seeing somebody and talk to that person in Spanish. So we need to have service providers that address language justice issues as well.
And I know personally,
No, I'm sorry, I didn't. Go ahead.
I know me personally,
Use the mic.
I do not take mental health medication is because I got died. They gave it to me when I was in prison. The medicine.
Use the mic.
They put so many chemicals and medicines inside. I'm sorry. I normally get loud, but this is like the biggest room I've been in, so my voice doesn't reach all the way to the back. So, when I was taking mental health medicine, I was taking Celexa, I was taking 2 other medicines. But long story short, the medicine started, fucking with my body. And then when I go back and I ask them, like, is this supposed to be doing this? It's like, yeah, it's a side effect to the medicine. So you telling me that my penis can't get, y'all don't want me to have kids, so my penis ain't gonna get hard because y'all don't want me to have kids? Y'all don't want me to recreate because I'm depressed? Really? Or y'all want to sit up here and make me where I'm going crazy because of these meds? Or they give them to you, then when you stop taking them for miss a dose a day, it gives you headaches, and now you're going through withdrawals. So that's another reason why some people don't deal with their mental health issues, because dealing with getting your mental health drugs is getting you getting your mental health medication. Some of them's gonna get you addicted like you did doing crack. So what's the point? Then you're right back in the cycle. Yes, you deal.
Okay.
Yeah, you deal with the mental health. Now you're addicted to pain medicine. Now you're back dealing with a whole other issue. It's just a revolving cycle, and it's not going to stop until we can actually rectify it.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
there was a young man who was going to ask a question, but he stepped out of the room. Oh, so we'll take one more. We were going to take one more, so that'll be our last question, and then we're going to close.
Oh, hello, everybody. My name's Eddie. I'm from Philly. I just want to talk about a personal experience of me dealing with mental health. You can have mental health and don't even know you have mental health.
Right.
And for 15 years, I had post-traumatic stress from being in 2 wars, and I didn't even know it. And I wasn't able to function like everybody else could until I got my medication for depression. You know, and I just want to talk about a client of mine that had his own apartment and was living under a bridge because he didn't know he had mental health. And once I advocated for him and got him on his mental health medication, he's actually working in the same field I am today because he was blessed to have somebody to advocate for him. And that's why I think this conference is so important, that we go out and advocate for our communities, you know, and help, you know, people to realize, you know, the illnesses that they suffer from. You know, but mental health is very important. And if we can't take care of the mental health, nothing else is going to happen.
Thank
you. Before I close, Marco, do you just want to share what you brought from the altar? Just real quickly, and then we're going to transition to a group picture, so we're going to need everybody here. But let folks know what we have on the stage so they can...
During the days that the altar was open, people could come and make their offers, which was put in a bag, a note for the person that had passed away, and a flower or something like that. So if you came to the altar and you created a memento or an offering for your muertito, for your dead person, please come and pick it up here so you can take it with you. Otherwise, I'm going to take it home, and it's going to be there until whenever you want to go and pick it up. Okay? I live in a little town of 600 people in Loyalton, California, next to Lake Tahoe, and you're more than welcome to come and join me there. You will like it.
So let's give a round for our amazing panel. And we don't want anybody to leave, because immediately now we want to take a group picture, which is a tradition at HINAC. We're going to move this just to the side so it will still be up here on the stage so you can get your items afterwards. So we have folks who are going to arrange everybody in the group picture. I'm not sure what they're going to do.
And thank you for watching our continuing live stream from HIV is Not a Crime. We've just seen our last official plenary in which they drew direct lines between HIV criminalization and the ways in which people have been criminalized for years, decades, centuries. Those who are immigrants, those who are addicted to drugs, are those who are engaged in sex work, and the intersectionalities between those movements for change and HIV criminalization. criminalization. Before we go further, and as this group gathers for a group photo, this really is a family reunion of sorts of so many of these activists. I would be remiss if I didn't make some thank yous, and that would be to our production team. Our director and producer, Nicholas Hoistel, is capable of taking a very small and efficient operation and making it look like $1 million. So we're really grateful for his work and dedication and creativity with our live streaming over the last few days. And of course, HIV Justice Network, on behalf of HIV Justice Worldwide, for making this live stream possible. We'll be back in about 30 minutes for a final closing session in which they'll be talking about going forward. What does this mean? And along the way, we'll have interviews with some of the leaders of this conference to give us their take on where they go from here. So join us again in about 30 minutes. This is Mark S. King with the live stream from HIV is Not a Crime at Indiana University.